This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Aurora, Colorado. I'm here at Cuddle Chinchillas. Since 2005, these chinchilla breeders have been raising, caring, and introducing some very unique pets to the public. I'm here with the founder, the owner. Share with me how this got started for you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we went to the pet store to get dog food, and it was my birthday. We saw a man walking around with a chinchilla on his shoulder. First time I'd ever seen one in real life. I fell in love, so my husband had to get me one. We brought her home. I named her Cuddles. My husband and a family friend kept calling her Bug. They said she looked like a space bug. So her name ended up Cuddle Bug, and that's who we have named the organization after.
That is a great story. Let's start off, first of all, by educating the public out there. Define what a chinchilla is, where do they come from, and are we talking multiple species that they have?
Chinchillas are a little rodent that come from the Andes Mountain. There's actually two species, the long-tail and the short-tail. Most of what you see in the U.S. is the long-tail chinchilla. They live at high altitudes normally. There aren't very many left in the wild at all, depending on who you talk to, 2,000 to about 5,000 of them. And they're all on a little preserve in Chile.
So the environment that they come from is kind of a cooler environment, I would imagine. Is it a good pet for here in Colorado?
Here in Colorado, it actually does very well. As long as during the summer you don't let them get too hot, they're fine. Normal room temperature is perfectly okay for them.
What is the difference between a domestic chinchilla and one in the wild that you'd find in Bolivia or Chile or somewhere like that? Is there a difference? They have to be breeded differently?
Over time, there has become a huge difference between the two. The wild ones are a lot smaller, the fur isn't as thick, and has a brownish tint to it. The domesticated ones are in many different colors, are usually much bigger and a lot thicker fur.
A lot thicker fur. When I hear the word chinchilla, it almost sounds Spanish to me, but is it more of an Indian origin that we go back to when we're talking about the name? And how long back these been used as pets? Or, like you said, were they used for fur?
Chinchillas, they're named after the tribe in the area that used to trap them, keep them as pets, eat them, and use their fur. And we don't know how long ago that was, but when the conquistadors took over South America, they discovered these people. They're called the Chincha. And the Chincha introduced them to the chinchilla, which they didn't have a name for, just this fuzzy little thing that they like to catch. So the conquistadors named it Chinchilla after Little Chincha.
Interesting. So actually almost named after the Indians that introduced them, which is very cool. Should we be considering before we actually take on a pet like this?
Well, chinchillas, an exotic vet, they do have specialized care that they need. Not all vets are capable of handling them because they just don't have the information. You have to keep them room temperature or cooler, and they can't be fed a lot of things that a lot of people tell you they can be. It really upsets their digestive system and drastically shortens their life.
Drastically shortens the life, so we definitely have to be cautious. This starts out as a wild animal. Is there actually a taming process that takes place? Probably starts here and then probably extends out to the owners. Is there kind of a process that they bring them out?
With our babies, we handle them every day, usually several times a day, from the moment they're born. So they're used to people. With the rescues, some of them people have taken vet advice and not picked them up. And so they're scared of people, and we have to work with those ones to tame them down. We don't let the rescues go to a new home until we're sure they're not going to have a bad reaction and start biting or just getting really upset.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about once we get them in the homes, what type of housing are we talking about? Is this a cage? I mean, temperature in a home is 68 degrees, 70 degrees. Is that a good temperature for these pets?
68 to 70 degrees is fine. In fact, you can go up to about 72. Once you hit 75, they become extremely uncomfortable and can actually go into heat stroke. They're normally kept in cages. Some people do let them roam around freely in the house. It's not a good idea because if they can get their little mouths on it, they will chew it, including electrical wires. Not safe. Yeah. So
interesting.
If they have them out and are playing with them, they need to keep an eye on them, not just let them roam aimlessly.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, this is not a mainstream pet, so I would imagine that it's important people get educated properly about them, kind of deciding what the myths are versus the facts of what you hear out there. Is that an important aspect to you?
Yes, it is. There's a lot of misinformation out there about chinchillas. There's also the craziest myth of all, that they can't get wet, which is they're not going to die if they get wet. They could get ringworm if they get wet and stay wet too long.
Most people don't know about these pets at all. And not only that, but as time goes on, we learn more and more about these pets. Is that important for people to understand that they're dealing with somebody who's an educated breeder versus Craigslist or maybe even a box top pet store?
Yes, it is. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the chinchillas, and a lot of it is spread in the books that are in the pet stores. The information is 30 years old, and time has proven it to be false. If you follow their directions, the chinchillas usually die between 2 and 5 years of age. If you feed them like the breeders do, then they live to be 15 to 20 or more years old.
Wonderful. Speaking of not mainstream, pretty few places that actually breed them. Is that the case here in Colorado?
There's actually about 8 breeders in Colorado. We're all friends. We're all part of the same organization that runs the shows. There are other people out there breeding them. For the most part, have not done their research, and so will give people bad information, and the quality of their animals is not as good.
There's good in everything, good and bad. Good breeders, not bad breeders. And so it's very important to educate people out there. Are these the kind of pets that require some interaction every day? And so therefore, are they good for kids of a certain age? I would imagine it takes some skill in learning how to hold them on the onset.
They do need daily interaction, though just as little as 5 or 10 minutes a day is enough to keep them from becoming antisocial. A lot of chinchilla breeders will not sell to families with small children because they're afraid the children will hurt the chinchilla. Their bones are only the size of a toothpick, and kids tend to clamp down once the chinchilla starts to wiggle. I prefer to teach families how to properly handle the chinchillas, and I'll actually sit the kid down on the floor in my basement with one and let him hold it. And I also tell the kid, when the chinchilla starts wiggling, let go, let mom and dad catch it.
Starts wiggling. These are small-boned animals. They wiggle around. We have to be cautious, making sure that they're kept safe. Probably differ from people who have owned a hamster or something like that. They have certain ways they exercise them. This is definitely a different pet.
Oh yes, it's very different. A lot of people will play with them in a room that they have closed off, and the chinchilla will just bounce off the walls, bounce off their owner. Use the owner as a jungle gym. You can also get wheels for them. You just have to make sure you get ones that are big enough. Otherwise, their back arches in the wrong direction and can cause them back problems later in their life.
Interesting. I mean, this really began for you as just one chinchilla, and now you're talking about nearly 130 chinchillas that you're caring for every day. You've gone beyond just the breeding, but also to a rescue house as well. Why is it important that people actually use a rescue house maybe as a good transition, not having a chinchilla and the next owner?
It's important because a lot of the people out there are trying to get rid of their chinchillas, say like on Craigslist. They don't know who they're dealing with. They don't know the right questions to ask those people. You get some really crazy nuts out there, and quite often they don't get cared for properly. When they come here, we actually keep them for 30 days. They are not allowed to leave until that 30 days is up. If they are a female that's been with a male in the last 4 months, they stay 4 months, and that's to make sure they're healthy. People have come in and asked me, well, which one do you think would be a good pet for our family? And I have them describe what their family life is like, and then I'll tell them which chinchillas might be a good idea for them and which ones definitely wouldn't be.
That's a very professional approach that I imagine a lot of places don't take. Viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. On the website, you're going to have quite a bit of information there. Take a look at the history of this wonderful pet and also learn a little bit more about the organization that began here as well. A lot of information out there as far as caring for them, the diet, longevity, even supplies, where to order them. You can become a part of the Chinchilla Club, keep you educated on this new pet that you have out there, which is very cool. We go out there and I see mainstream pets. Many times places need pet care overnight. Maybe they're going somewhere or going out of town. I imagine there's not a chinchilla pet care on every corner. Is that something that you provide as well?
Yes, we do board chinchillas. These little guys can get themselves in trouble at the drop of a hat, sometimes right in front of you. It's happened to me. I was at a cage and one bounced off the top of his door and got his toe caught, and we had to free him. And it was just a split second. If you leave them alone, say like over a weekend, actually likely to pee in their food, drain their water bottle, and possibly escape. If nobody's there to keep an eye on them, then they're going an entire weekend with a wet cage, no food, or running around the house and getting into God knows what.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. This was a passion that evolved from a birthday gift. I have to ask you if you've still got the original chinchilla, and has this been rewarding for you, handing out a pet that, who knows, could be somebody's next birthday gift?
This has been very rewarding for me. We do not have the original chinchilla Cuddle bug. When we got one of those books at the pet store, followed what it said, and later we got a mate for her, and I treated him the same way. They both died at the age of 2 because the books were wrong on how to feed them.
Therefore, what you're basically doing is giving back in a way to make sure that people are educated, understand, and because quite honestly, the life of these chinchillas can be pretty impressive.
Yes, they can live 15 to 20 or more years. There have been chinchillas that live to be 28 years old and one that lived to be 32.
Basically able to educate people on something they probably know very little about.
Yes, it's actually kind of fun talking to people and teaching them what they don't know about the chinchillas, which most people know absolutely nothing except that they make fur coats out of them.
Wonderful. Last time, viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. You're going to see her contact information right there. Basically, any questions you have, you can check out online. But if that doesn't answer it for you, give her a call. She would be glad to speak with you over the phone and find out if she's got a pet that matches the personality of your home. Find out how old your kids are, how loud the environment is. This is basically a pet that can give you years and years of enjoyment, but definitely some precautions have to go in place there to make sure that this is something that is a great fit for you. Once again, that is the Cuddlebug Chinchilla since 2005. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.